What's good, Raider Nation? Thanks for joining me again on this beautiful, rainy Saturday over here in the Bay Area. I don't know how the weather is where you guys are at, but here we're getting a little bit of rain. And you know what? It's been a pretty dry winter, so I'm actually all for it. First and foremost, thank you guys for coming in and checking out the channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell a friend. Make sure you hit that little bell button in the bottom. That way you get notifications when I drop these. Also, if you like it, hit that thumbs up. If you don't like it, tell me what you don't like so I can fix it. Wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on right now. So we've got obviously a lot of news, a lot of things that have been picking up. Tom Brady news has kind of died down a little bit, but another quarterback has now surfaced as a Raiders target. The Raiders are looking at Marcus Mariota as a potential QB2 to add in free agency. I'm going to get into that later. First and foremost, what I'd like to do is I'd like to wish my father, Mr. Kenny King Sr., a very happy birthday. As you guys know, Kenny was a two-time Super Bowl champion for the Oakland and Los Angeles Raiders. Held a 80-yard touchdown reception, which was the longest in Super Bowl history for about 16 years. Was broken by 1 yard by Antonio Freeman. But he did hold that for a while, and he still is top 5 longest runs from the line of scrimmage with a 89-yard touchdown run against the San Diego Chargers. So here are a couple of those plays. Go ahead and take a look at those.
As everything that could go right did go right.
Drop back. Here comes the rush. Steps up. Can't find anybody yet. Takes off running to the left. Rolls on the move. And it's caught by King at the 40. King takes over the 50. He'll go all the way. Nobody knows.
The pass covered 80 yards. A Super Bowl record.
Touchdown Raiders.
Raider Radio's Bill King.
So Plunkett will try to get him rolling from the 11. Hand off to King. Outside left tackle into the secondary. Takes off the 50 and the 20 at the 30. Here comes Shaw, 40, 50. Shaw gets a piece of it, misses at the 30, to the 20, to the 10. Touchdown Raiders! Holy Toledo!
Man had speed. And that was a fullback, too. That's crazy. Anyways, let's get back to it. So there's been a lot of news, a lot of things that have been tied to the Raiders, a lot of information that's been coming out. Obviously, Tom Brady has been a top target for the media to say is going to the Raiders, but we haven't really heard a lot of speculation out of the Raiders camp. We've heard a lot of the media people saying that he could be linked to the Raiders, the Titans, now the Niners, and even going back to New England. So there's always that talk there. Me personally, I think the Raiders stick with Derek Carr. I think they've invested a lot into him. I think that he's done enough to show that he is thriving in John Gruden's offense, and they're continuing to progress. So I think that the Raiders are going to stick with Carr, but we'll see what happens there. That being said, now looking at the other news, the Raiders are potentially looking at Marcus Mariota. Now, this is intriguing because Marcus Mariota obviously was a starter. He was in Tennessee. He lost a starting job to Ryan Tannehill, who led the Titans to the playoffs. Marcus Mariota is a very serviceable quarterback. What I would like to see is the Raiders to bring him in as a backup, because I think that he has a skill set that if something were to happen, if we can take Carr out and he leads us to a drive to sustain that lead and help us finish that win when we don't need to keep our quarterback in, just like we did in Christmas Eve in 2016. Those are those situations where you want to have your backup, but also the other situations, if something were to happen to Carr, if he were to go down, if he were to miss a couple of games, whatnot, he is a serviceable quarterback who could step in and fill that void. I'm much more confident in him than I would be in Kaiser or Glennon or even Peterman, and I think that he may be a more viable option as a backup. It also allows us to take it from 3 backups down to 1 backup, which gives us more room on the roster for actual playmakers. That being said, let's look a little bit about what's going on as well. Now, obviously, Tom Brady is still the big talk of the town, and the biggest lobbyist right now for Tom Brady is Dana White. Dana White was on his Instagram Live yesterday and had Josh Jacobs on talking about fight predictions. At the end of the fight predictions, Dana White decided to throw a curveball and asked Josh Jacobs this.
What about if we can get Tom Brady out to the Raiders?
Look, hey, I can't speak on that. Hey, look, hey, no, but that's gonna be that's interesting too. With Tom Brady, man, and how his move. I just don't see him leaving the Patriots, honestly. But I don't know. We'll see how it play out.
Now, as you can see, Josh Jacobs is visibly excited about the idea. I mean, let's face it. He's 22 years old. He grew up watching the guy play. He's the greatest quarterback that he's ever seen play, most likely. He's probably never seen Joe Montana. And this would be an intriguing option to him. I don't think he's excited about the thought of getting rid of Carr or anything like that, but I'm not going to speculate on what another man thinks. You can ask him about that. But I think that you look at social media and the backlash that he's receiving, it's highly unwarranted. I think that Josh Jacobs is still a young player who has a lot of growing to do and hasn't been coached correctly on how to answer these type of questions, as we saw right here when discussing Antonio Brown.
I was with him yesterday, so when he made the calls and stuff like that, so it wasn't really big of a surprise for me.
Those are just some things that you can look at, and it grows with maturity, right? I don't think it's anything that's wrong. I don't think it's a knock on the player. I don't think it's a knock on the guy. I think Josh Jacobs is a hell of a player. I think he's a hell of a person. I think that he is a hell of a teammate. He's already made comments backing Carr, saying that he's one of the smartest people he's ever played with. So I'm not going to get into that, and this isn't going to be a whole Derek Carr YouTube channel. So what I want to do is just back off of that, and let's go on to the next. So back to the team and back to what excites me about this team. Now, obviously in 2020, there's a lot to be excited about, right? We had a really, really strong rookie class. Josh Jacobs, Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby, Hunter Renfrow. Jonathan Abram only played one game, but when he was in that one game, he made a tremendous impact. Trayvon Mullen, Alec Ingold, Andre James. So these guys stepped in and made an instant impact on this roster. We haven't seen an impact like this with a rookie class, and I don't even know how long. I don't think it has ever happened. Now we look at this year. We've got 2 picks in the first round again. We've got 5 picks in the top 100. The Raiders are in prime position to make another solid draft. What I would love to see is this team to continue to progress. The offense is almost there. All we need to do is improve on scoring, especially in the red zone, finishing drives, not committing stupid penalties, and eliminating mistakes. Very simple. Realistically, we're about 1, maybe 2 players off from this offense being an elite offense. Looking at the defense, there's obviously some more holes to fill, which I think are going to be fulfilled through free agency. We've got a ton of cap space, and then also through the draft. Now, I'm going to talk about the draft a little bit more in my next episode, but what I want to talk about in this episode is kind of what excites me about this team, what makes me excited about what's going forward, and what we have to look forward to. Now, obviously, like I said, I mentioned all these rookies that we had, but we also have role players. We have a lot of solid players, not even role players, I would say, but guys that are coming back, guys that are coming off an injury, guys like Tyrell Williams, who had 5 touchdowns in his first 5 games before he got injured. He was on track to score at least 10 touchdowns on the season. He was on track to have at least 1,000 yards, and he was averaging almost 15 yards a catch. That's huge. I think that that's an overlooked stat because of the fact that he got injured and he had the plantar fasciitis that he was dealing with through the majority of the year. Guys like Foster Moreau, who's coming back, then when we were in the red zone, our red zone efficiency went up and he was most successful in the red zone. Guys like Darren Waller, who when we add another player, it's going to take all of the attention off of him and it's going to make him more available for plays. Josh Jacobs, another guy who he played most of the season with a broken shoulder, and he still managed to be second runner-up in Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year honors. And realistically, he should have won that. Let's be honest. But what excites me is that the media is obviously starting to take notice, and they took notice last year. And obviously, you know, the hype started to build, and you know, we started looking at talking about playoffs and everything about that. And we had a 5 or 4 game slide where we went 1-5 in the final games, and we could blame the refs, we could blame our quarterback, we could blame the defense, we could do all that. But at the end of the day, we just weren't good enough, and we didn't win those games. What I'm excited about is that I think with another solid draft class and with the draft class that we had, this team can continue to move forward. I think that this team can continue to get better. They can make the playoffs this year, and they should be, as Peter Schrager on Good Morning Football said, the sleeper team of 2020.
I'm going with the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like the Raiders, the wheels fell off at the end of the season, but the Raiders had one of the best draft classes you'll see to make this big swing, going from 7-9 to being a team that can compete not only in the AFC West with the Chiefs, but really make a play in the AFC. Fascinating what they do in this offseason. 12th and the 19th pick, and of course have a lot of money to spend in free agency. And oh yeah, are starting in a new home with all that excitement around Las Vegas.
That's gonna be incredible.
This would be a cool story if the Raiders became one of these teams that we're talking about come January next season.